What's up, everybody? Tom Pelissero here at Reliance Stadium. Vikings wrapping up the preseason tonight with a 28-24 loss to the Houston Texans. Now we move on to the fun stuff. Cutdown day on Friday, 8 p.m., the deadline. And then what could be a really interesting several days for the Vikings as waivers continue to come through. Now you're going to have 22 times 32, whatever that is, about 600 guys waived around the league tomorrow. The Vikings are going to be third in the priority list to get any of those guys. I think it's going to be really telling to see exactly what they end up doing. And also don't forget, if players get claimed, somebody else has to get released, there's going to be more names going through the weekend. The Vikings could use some help in a couple of areas that popped up tonight. One of them being the offensive line. DeMarcus Love aggravating that shoulder pectoral thing that he's had. Pat Brown didn't play well in this game, took 2 penalties, easily could have been called for 2 more if the replacement officials had been paying any attention, and just didn't play well overall. That's a really big concern when you think about the fact that if one of those guys, if Phil Loadholt or Matt Khalil would go down, somebody's got to go in there and be able to protect Christian Ponder. They're not sure if Jeff Schwartz is going to be all the way back in week 1. He'd be the logical veteran option to put in there. If Love's not available, do you really trust Pat Brown? He's a guy who's played a little bit for you. I think, though, they're going to be looking out there. There's not many starting caliber offensive tackles to get released on cutdown day, but there could be some viable backup options. That's definitely going to be worth monitoring. The linebacker position, too. Marvin Mitchell with a sprained ankle tonight. He would be the 4th linebacker to come into any game if Aaron Henderson, Chad Greenway, or Jasper Brinkley were to go down. And, of course, Brinkley is a guy who, even though he's healthy now and he played pretty well the past couple of weeks before taking tonight off, you just wonder exactly how long he's going to be able to do it, whether it's going to wear down once he's playing 70, 75, 80 snaps in a game. If Mitchell's not available, I don't know how great you feel about having Adi Cole, a rookie 7th-round pick, going in there and playing defense. Larry Dean, I'm not convinced, is going to make this team because you see the weakness when you put him on the field on defense. They like him on special teams, but the attempted tackle of DeVere Posey where he didn't even try to use his arms, just tried to knock him down, you can't do that in the NFL. It ends up being an 80-yard touchdown. Tyrone McKenzie played a little bit in the NFL, but not a whole lot. Where do your options come from there? They claimed a linebacker a season ago, Xavier Adibi, and that didn't work out. He played in 4 games on special teams, and that was about it. They've got to look at those 2 spots for potential help. At other positions, they've got some pretty tough cuts ahead between the running back position where you saw the Jordan Todman that we saw in the offseason tonight. He has a 75-yard touchdown run. He's got that burst back. The ankle's not an issue anymore. I think it may be too little too late for Jordan Todman to be able to make the 53-man roster. We'll have to see how that plays out. He'd be a guy that they'd probably love to sneak back on the practice squad. Matt Asiata gets to start tonight and played well again. Continues to make the most of his opportunities. Held on to the football, averaged about 6-7 yards a carry in this game. Lex Hilliard's still in the mix too. I think at this point I would bet on Asiata being the pick, but I also wouldn't bet on this thing because there's a lot of different ways it could go. They've also got to figure out how many fullbacks they end up keeping. Jerome Felton played a lot of this game tonight, which I think is telling in that they want to make sure Felton is taking steps forward. Had a couple of blocks that he didn't exactly stick tonight, and he doesn't play special teams. So do you keep that guy over Ryan D'Imperio? I think you do because Felton gives you more on offense. D'Imperio at the fullback position isn't bringing a whole lot, but he is a better special teamer. Receiver, I think that clarified itself tonight. Emmanuel Arsenault really didn't get a shot. I don't entirely understand why. But Roma Shadu stepping up and making a play. Jarius Wright stepping up and making plays. Stephen Burton is the big question in my mind because is there room for Stephen Burton? Do you keep a 6th receiver in essence because you have Jerome Simpson who's suspended, doesn't count against the roster limit, but you're not probably going to suit up 5 receivers on game day, particularly when those guys don't play special teams either. So Burton's a guy who is going to be a really interesting one to watch here, whether or not they decide to keep him around. And over in the defensive backfield as well, you've got some questions here, in part because you got so many injuries back there between Andrew Sandejo being a big one. I thought he was going to make the team until he sprained the ankle. Now you just wonder, does that open up the door? Robert Blanton ends up getting out there tonight. They got to evaluate his performance on tape. They got to figure out what they're going to do with the cornerback position. Chris Carr played a ton tonight, which makes me think that maybe they want to see a little bit more from him too before deciding what to do with him. And then also on the defensive line, Nick Reed continues to be productive. He had that very bad example of losing contain against San Francisco on that big run for Colin Kaepernick. But other than that, has continued to be productive. Still a young guy at age 24. Do you keep him over a Trevor Guyton, your 7th-round pick, who might get picked up on waivers? You do wonder about that and how much value is there in another backup end when you already can't get the guys you do have at that position onto the field because of how much Jared Allen and Brian Robinson play. A lot of questions to be answered. They got to answer them quickly because the deadline is sooner than past years. Usually it's 3 or 4 p.m. on Saturday. This year, 8 p.m. Friday, so this video will be outdated in less than 24 hours. But hey, What else am I going to talk about? Cutdown Day is coming up next, and we are now only 10 days away from that opener. The other note out of Leslie Frazier's postgame, too, Adrian Peterson, he's claiming it's going to be a game-time decision on Sunday. I don't know that it's necessarily, well, it's never a game-time decision, but a 90-minute decision. I don't buy that it's necessarily Peterson working out. They know what he's going to work out like. I don't think it's a matter of seeing him on that day and deciding whether or not he can go, but they got to take the body of work over the course of this week, see how he gets through it, continue to give him more in practice, let him take on more contact, and then determine it. Either way, if you're handcuffing Peterson and Toby Gerhardt in fantasy football, I'd play Toby Gerhardt in week 1. I'm headed back to the Twin Cities, hopefully before they release the cuts tomorrow, and doing a show, too, at 6 p.m., so tune in for that on 1500 ESPN. Full Vikings coverage at 1500ESPN.com. We will see you.